Welcome to the Elk Talk Podcast with Randy Newberg and Corey Jacobson. Presented by the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation.
The goal is, what little you and I know about elk hunting, we share with people.
I've got an elk bugle, it's like 120 yards away. What do I do? First off, the thought would never cross my mind when an elk's bugle 120 yards away to call anybody on a cell phone.
All elk?
All the time? Only elk?
Only elk.
Well, it's us having conversations, so we usually go down some rabbit holes, but
if you hunt with Corey Jacobson, you will find the landscape is full of rabbit holes. We're just going to make this up as we go.
And you look at it like, oh, that's a target-rich environment. But if you're trying to single one out, a solo target there is much easier to go into than a big group.
We record everything, so there's no BSing, no lying, no faking it with us.
Did we hit the record button?
I forgot to hit the record button. If you want to know something about elk hunting, this probably isn't the podcast to listen to. Should we give them a list of all the other podcasts where they might learn something? The Elk Talk Podcast is brought to you by the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, ensuring the future of elk, other wildlife, their habitat, and our hunting heritage. To become a member, go to rmef.org.
The Elk Talk Podcast is also brought to you by Mountain Ops, making outdoor energy and performance nutrition to make you a stronger and healthier elk hunter. They have a full line of hunting-related supplements, including meal replacement shakes, multivitamins, pre-workout fuel, and post-workout recovery. And my favorite, their new performance protein bars that, by the way, are packed with 270 calories and 20 grams of protein, but contain less than 6 grams of sugar. Visit mountainops.com to learn more and to order, and be sure to use the promo code ELKTALK to save on your next order.
The podcast is also brought to you by Gerber. Go to gerbergear.com and learn about the knives, the Vital, the Big Game Vital, the Gator Premium, all the things that we use when we're out in the woods, and not just knives, but also some really cool multi-tools that they have.
And we have a promo code for Gerber as well. Just use the code ELKTALK to save 20% on your orders at gerbergear.com. And we are also brought to you by Rocky Mountain Hunting Calls. And Rocky Mountain Hunting Calls is the original designer and inventor of the pallet plate diaphragm that's completely changed the way elk calls are made and used. And to find out more and to order your elk calls, go to RockyMountainHuntingCalls.com or buglingbull.com and use promo code ELKTALK, and you're going to save 15% on all of your elk calls and elk call accessories.
The Elk Talk Podcast is also brought to you by GoHunt.com. Go to GoHunt.com and sign up for the Insider. The Insider is changing how hunts and hunting information are found. No doubt about that. Use promo code ELKTALK, and when you sign up for the Insider, you're going to get $50 of store credit, mad money, in their gear shop.
Lastly, the University of Elk Hunting online course is a proud partner of the Elk Talk Podcast. And within the University of Elk Hunting online course, you're going to find nearly 60 chapters organized in 17 modules of elk hunting instruction aimed at making you a more successful elk hunter. From planning and e-scouting to calling strategies and packing, every imaginable elk hunting topic is included in the online course. And regardless of your previous elk hunting experience or success, I'm confident the University of Elk Hunting online course will make you a more confident, more successful elk hunter. Just visit elk101.com and use the promo code ELKTALK to save 20% when you sign up for a membership to the University of Elk Hunting online course.
And with that, Corey, we are ready to get into it.
Let's jump into it.
Morning, Corey.
Hey, how are you, Randy?
I'm licking my wounds. If I was a horse, they'd shoot me.
That bad, huh?
It's a Monday. How you doing?
I'm great.
See, that's why I hang out with you. You're always great.
Man, during elk season, it's hard for me to find a reason not to be great, but
well, give yourself 10 more years. When you wake up and you didn't even know that you could have a big ache underneath your fingernail. I mean, I end up with aches in places that I didn't even know that you had nerves there to give me an ache. But And I know people are tired of me belly aching about getting old, but I'm going to be 56 here a month from today.
Man, that does sound fairly old.
Trust me, if you saw me walking around the house this morning, you'd think, well, I wonder if we could get sponsored by a wheelchair or walker company. We already know he needs hearing aids, but
man, they're going to have to be making elk calls for denture fitments and all sorts of stuff here soon.
I know. And my wife and I were talking over the weekend. She's like, well, how many nights have you been in a tent this year? I said, 25 already. She said, well, how many you got to go? I said, 30 more. She's like, oh, I'll go get you some ibuprofen here.
Yeah, you aren't going to make it.
No.
That's why you and your wife's dog hang out together. Mm-hmm. Your wife actually has the dog babysitting you.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. So she's thinking we're both going to tip over about the same time. The dog's going to live for another 10 years, and I probably won't. I'll be up in Boot Hill before that dog ever dies. So it's sitting right here on the floor looking at me like, you talking about me? But hey,
it can't hear what you're saying, so it doesn't matter.
That's true. Yeah, but I think it can read lips. I better put my mask on, then it can't read my lips.
There you go.
That's a downside, and this is all no politics here. Whether you're a masker or anti-masker or whatever, I don't really care. But for people like me who have compromised hearing, if you want to realize how much lip reading you do as you get older, as your hearing starts to suffer, try to communicate with people wearing masks.
Yep.
I did not realize how much lip reading I do, but I do now.
Drive-through windows at grocery store checkouts, I'm always saying, what was that?
Yep.
Sorry, what was that?
Yeah. So the good news is, a guy from the Mayo Clinic he's a doctor of audiology. He wrote a piece and he used me as an example. So I got a hold of him. I'm like, hey, you want to talk to me about hearing loss and talk to my audience about hearing loss? He's like, yeah. So I'm going to have him come and talk about that kind of stuff someday.
Wow.
But
you're definitely you're going down the geriatric path here.
I am.
Podcast guests are hearing devices and hearing loss
yeah. But you want to know what? There is some practical benefit about talking to doctors of audiology about your hearing loss. Is when they're talking about it, make sure your wife is sitting right beside you, so that is proof this is not something you're making up.
Yeah, it's not selective hearing.
Not selective hearing. Not at all. So I'm just trying to, throw a little bit of highlight, a little bit of benefit in it here. So,
yeah. But no, speaking of hearing loss and audio stuff, we're leaving tomorrow morning for the Outfitters for Hope hunt, which it's been the hunt of a lifetime hunt where we take youth with life-threatening illness out elk hunting. And a couple of years ago, we were out on that same hunt, and Ben Potter from Kana Outdoors was with us. Yeah. And it was actually the year that we filmed The Linguist, and he brought a parabolic microphone with him, which those are the great big ones you see at like the NFL games where the person on the sideline has that great big half dome and it points out there and just really directs all the audio right into the microphone. And he had his headphones on and he used it quite a bit that season, and he would say, "Oh, I just heard a bugle," and like, "I didn't hear anything. I don't think you did," and kind of wrote it off, as maybe just a little bit of feedback or something in the headphones. And so one day we were sitting there and he said, "I just heard a bugle." I said, "Let me see that." So I put the headphones on and sat there and listened. You could hear ravens like miles away. And what was cool is when somebody would bugle, you could hear it echo and then echo and then echo, and then echo. Like for miles, you could hear it. And I said, I want to test this and see how well it works. And so I had Donnie walk down the hill with the mic and the headphones, and I stayed up on the hill. And I said, just go down 120, 150 yards and point it up at me. And I want you turn your back to me. And when you hear me talking, turn around. So Donnie got down there, back turned to me, and he has the headphones on. And I literally whispered as quietly as I could. I just said, can you hear me? And he turned around and said, I can hear you loud and clear. Wow. It's like 150 yards away. It's picking up the most quiet whisper. I thought, man, I need one of those mounted on my backpack. So we just walk around and we can hear elk bugle because I swear the elk this year had to have been just out of that audio threshold because I couldn't hear bugles most of the season, it seemed like.
Well, that's good to hear then, because I was thinking it was my hearing.
Well, it might have been.
Maybe it was just the elk weren't there. But I was in Wyoming mule deer hunting for 10 days, and the elk were screaming their heads off where even I could hear them.
Man.
So
you have an elk tag for Wyoming, don't you?
I do. But here's the problem. I allocated 12 days of hunting in Wyoming, and the deer hunt took 10 of them.
I'm not real good at math, but it seems like you had a couple days left in that allocation.
Yeah. And we were 11 miles in where we saw the elk or heard the elk. And I did see 6 bulls. They were nice ones. So by the time we came out 11 miles, went to Idaho Falls, ran into Ben Potter at the Hilton Garden Inn. Speaking to the guy, ran into him at the Hilton Garden Inn. He's back in Idaho elk hunting this year. And then we went back to try to do 2 days of elk hunting. And I'm like, well, 11 miles in, that means day 1 is going in and day 2 is coming out. So why am I going in 11 miles? So I went in 3 or 4 miles and kind of got what you deserve when you go in 3 or 4 miles. Everybody else wanted to go in 3 or 4 miles. It was a pretty busy place.
Really?
I had a general tag. And I don't know how many people we saw, but I saw more people there than I normally see in Montana in the regular season.
Man.
Yeah. But that's all right.
Crazy.
Public land. The other part was the deer season is open at the same time. Most of those people I ran into were deer hunting.
I was going to say, most of the time when I'm hunting in Wyoming on that general tag, if I get a half mile off the road, I really don't see anybody. And it's that half mile to 3 or 4 mile range where we seem to get into the elk because the rifle deer season's open, and it seems like the deer hunters are going up a little higher looking for those deer. Yeah. And I think the elk kind of get pushed down into the timber a little bit lower than where you expect to find them.
Well, that's what I thought. So here was my strategy, and you're going to laugh when you hear what my strategy was. So it's like, all right, I got 2 days. Residents can hunt the wilderness area, but non-residents can't. So I pull up to this trailhead, and I see all these Wyoming trucks with horse trailers. I'm like, all right, they're all up in the wilderness area. They're going to push the elk down out of the wilderness area. Sounds like a smart strategy, I thought. Yeah. Well, Marcus and I hike in there, and we're about a mile and a half from the wilderness area, and it sounds like a war going on up there. I thought maybe the Russians were coming and it was the movie Red Dawn or something. And from what I could see, they just pushed the elk further up into the wilderness area. The elk didn't get the memo to come down. So me and all the other non-residents had the same strategy. Every non-resident I ran into was employing the same strategy. We're all hunting right near the wilderness boundary.
And the elk are right down at the trailhead by your truck going,
there you go.
Man, for all these vehicles, I would have thought there would have been a lot more pressure. But carry on. Ruts on.
But anyhow, it's the middle of elk season, if you want to call it that. September's over. Yeah. Can you believe September's over already?
It was a weird September. I didn't get excited this year. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong. September, and I love it. But we struggled enough that I think there was more frustration and failure than there was elation and success. But yeah, I mean, we had plenty of opportunities. We had plenty of success. But, just between the fires and the smoke and plans getting changed and canceled and everything, I felt like...
Because weren't you guys supposed to go to Oregon, but they closed everything because of those big fires over there?
Yeah, I don't want to completely let the cat out of the bag for Destination Elk, but we didn't go to Oregon. No, you're good. We as badly as we wanted redemption on the Roosevelt Elk, the week we had scheduled to go there, they closed National Forest, State Forest, Timberland Company. There was one little section of BLM down in the southern part of the state that was open, and that was it along the coast. So
wow. Huh. So as a result, you didn't get those crazy guys from Angry Spike Productions on a podcast either, did you?
I did not. But they ended up going out the next week when things opened back up, and they had some success and good stuff. So we probably do need to chat with them and get the skinny on how the hunting was over there.
Huh. Well, the last podcast I did was with Kurt Howard, and it was a report from our Idaho archery elk hunt. And I've got some keen observations about your elk in Idaho.
Do we have elk in Idaho?
You have elk. I don't know how many bulls you have. I think you have 4 bulls in the state of Idaho.
Did you hear them all bugle?
No, I heard one of them bugle.
Okay, well, that's about par then, 25%.
Yeah, and now in that episode, we're talking about how we found one bull that finally was all worked up. And at the time we did the podcast, Kurt and I were like, how did that bull smell us from 650 yards? Well, now we're back home. We look at the footage. What we find out is the elk aren't even looking at us. The cowboy who was moving his cows off the grazing allotment is coming up the creek bottom. I mean, talk about bad timing, right? Of all the times that a cowboy could be moving his cows up the creek bottom, it happens to be the one morning when we have one bull that's going crazy and the elk push off 3 miles away.
Man.
That kind of explains how my Idaho elk hunting experience went. Beautiful country. Oh, man. You got beautiful country there.
Yeah. And the weather was great. I mean, it was T-shirt weather at night. So,
yeah. But
if you're camping, that's just perfect.
Yeah. The one thing I've never, in all my years of traveling elk country, I have never been in a basin that has as many skeletons of elk as that basin.
Really?
And I don't know what it is. If it's winter kill, if that's where they winter and the wolves get in there, or that much that many hunters. But a lot of these are elk that are laying there, and it's a whole skeleton, including the front leg and the back leg, which maybe if someone boned it out and laid the back leg right on the pelvic bone, that would make sense. These don't look like hunter caught, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Based on the autopsy, the fact that the femurs and the tibias are laying right there, tell me these are probably not hunter kills, because hunters usually will carry the quarter out, or even if they bone it out, a lot of times they throw the bone far away from the carcass. Yeah. And so,
yeah, typically if you're finding hunter killed carcasses, you're just finding a rib cage and a vertebrae.
No, we found the whole thing. We even pulled the old trick. We found a dead head and we hung it in a tree, and even that didn't work for good luck.
Really?
Yeah.
See, I've been telling you need to be packing those things out.
Probably should have. At least it would have looked like we had an elk to show for it then. But here's the other part. So we go in, you guys get a blizzard on Labor Day. It was Labor Day.
Labor Day weekend.
Yeah. And we're like, you know what? We're not climbing up on that mountain and fighting 40-mile-an-hour winds with 10-degree temperatures. So we go in the day after Labor Day. There's nobody there. We're the only ones at the campground. I'm like, we might be in the wrong spot. Maybe this place is closed.
That probably should have been a sign for you.
Yeah. We never encountered a single hunter when we were in there. We encountered the cowboy. And when we came out from the campground all the way to the main highway, it was camp after camp after camp after camp. I've never seen that many people show up in the course of a couple days in the forest. I couldn't believe it. So
that's crazy.
I don't know did you guys encounter a ton of people in the woods this year?
We didn't really. I mean, we definitely saw people, but it wasn't, like it was overwhelming. Opening day was rough. It opened on the weekend here. So opening day was definitely tough, but opening day was also our best bugling action that first week. Yeah, it was hot and dry. And then, like you said, that Saturday of Labor Day weekend, I think it was Friday or Saturday, it got cold and we got snowed on. That happened to be the day we were riding motorcycles, too, and took Dale on I was going to say a crash course of motorcycle riding, but it literally was a crash course. We borrowed one of your camera guys turned out to be a couple weeks during September, and we'd asked him, you comfortable on motorcycles? Oh, yeah, I'm good. Said single track stuff in the mountains. It's nothing too dangerous or anything, but it's single track. Oh, yeah, I'm good. Well, I was first in line and rode ahead, and then there was Dale, and then Donnie was kind of bringing up the back, and I swear I waited an hour and a half up at the ridge for him, and I built a fire, trying to keep warm there and that, and they got up there and I had a fire going. I'd already eaten my lunch and all my food, and Dale was just white as a ghost. And we got back that night, and we'd actually got into a couple bugles. They were 3,000 feet in elevation down, but it was first bugles we'd heard in 3 days. And so I was pretty optimistic and said, if we head up in there tomorrow, I'm pretty sure we can get down on those elk and have some excitement. And Dale said, if you guys are going back in there on motorcycles, you're going to have to get another camera guy. We did find another trail, and he did a lot better on that. Well, it was a road basically, but it was my plan to hunt on motorcycles was a lot more optimistic. And Donnie, I think, was back there secretly saying, "Thank you, Dale. You spared me."
Dale took the hit for Donnie.
He did. Yep.
Oh, well, that's good. I have not seen a workers' comp claim, so that's good.
That's why I invited him back the next week, just to make sure he had time to heal up before he got back to you. And
all right,
we took it a lot more easy. We did ride the e-bikes.
How'd that work?
It was so great. In Idaho National Forest, they're considered motorized vehicle. So you can't ride them on any non-motorized trails or roads on National Forest. But what we did find was we looked a lot closer at a lot of these brushed in roads that we thought were non-motorized, just because they're so brushed in, you can't even ride a side-by-side on them. And there are several of them that say, I forget what it is, any and all vehicles, I think, access. And we were able to take the e-bikes on several of those, and they were brushed in. I mean, we definitely pushed through brush, but definitely saved us a lot of time and energy getting back on some of those roads. And then you get back in a mile through all that brush, and a lot of times they open up and able to cruise on them. So we did explore some new country and able to access some country we probably wouldn't have otherwise tried to access. And unfortunately, the results were a lot of similar. We saw a lot of pretty country and just didn't hear a lot of bugles. But
yeah. So what do you make of all the comments we've been receiving about what's going on this year? This is the craziest year I've ever had elk hunting. And what you and I've been talking about here probably is a little bit of confirmation that we're having some of the same experiences of just it being a different year. I don't know. I don't want to make too much of it because it easily can be just, oh, well, that's how it goes. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But But here in Montana, I've got guys who normally are dialed into elk like nobody's business. And when I talk to them, they're like, I don't know. I must have forgot how to hunt elk. I haven't had any encounters, or I had one, lone encounter or whatever. I throw that out there because I guess for people who think that everybody just goes out there and, elk come running in, all of us have our times where it's a head scratcher.
Yeah. No, and we were fortunate that Oregon shut down because it gave us an extra week here in Idaho. And Donnie and I, neither one filled our tags that first week. Wow. And typically that first week, it's tough. It's always tough. There's not as many bugles. You've got to cover more country. But I just always found that if I could get an elk to answer me early, I could move in on him and usually get him riled up. And this year, we had way less bugles. We had opening day, we had one bull that was really fired up. He was bugling good, but he wouldn't come in. And, once we moved in, we realized why. He was a smaller bull that had cows, and he was just timid. He was very, very vocal, but a lot of talk and no action. Then the next two days, we didn't hear bugles. Then we heard the ones on the motorcycle ride that they were a long way off. We dropped 1,500 feet in elevation that evening, thinking maybe they just sound like they're farther. Maybe they're just over the first little break there. And when we got 1,500 feet lower, we bugled, and they were still another 1,500 feet below us. And, it's getting dark. It's not getting dark, but we had maybe 45 minutes of daylight left. And I thought we could probably get there, but it's going to take us hours to get out. And so we decided not to drop in. And that's when we thought we'd be able to go in the next day. The next afternoon, we had a bull scream at us, and we moved in on him, and he went quiet. And the next time we heard him bugle, he was a half a mile up the drainage. We went up after him and never did catch up to him. And then after dark, he started bugling again. And then for the next couple of days, it was tough. But then when we didn't go to Oregon, we got really fortunate in that we timed it really good, and we had a couple really good days of bugling action where there were, I think the herd bulls were just coming into the herd. There were the younger bulls there. There was a lot of bugling, and the bulls wanted to play a little bit more. And Donnie and I ended up both shooting our bulls during that time. But then I hunted with my kids after that, those few days that we had, and it was rough. I mean, we had bugles, but we couldn't get close to them. We'd get close and cow call, and they'd go quiet and move up the hill 400 yards. We'd get close and challenge them, and they'd go quiet and move up the hill 400 yards. It was just like they didn't want to fully engage in rut behavior. And I don't know, it was hot. It was definitely, the daytime temperatures were in the 80s. It was only getting down to the mid 40s or 50s at night. It was smoky. All the fires around here is just, my throat hurt just from breathing in the smoke. We're coming, full moon was coming up. So I can't really pin it on anything. I guess the only thing I can think of that was different was the combination of all three of those things. Just kind of muffled it a little bit. It stifled what we were expecting for sure. Yeah.
Well, in our comments here from the Elk Talk Podcast, contact us for him. The guy, Shane, he's wrote this thing, and he's like, hey, guys, my brother and I have spent a lot of time in this same area of Idaho. This year, I'm highlighting here so I don't rat him out. He said, we hunted from September 9th through September 20th. We saw one elk at 11 p.m. on the road while driving around at night bugling to try and locate. And in the course of those 11 days, we heard two bugles, and one of those was at midnight. He says, we found fresh sign, but we could not get our eyes or ears on any bulls nor cows. We tried a number of tactics. We were highly mobile, cold calling, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. I feel like this year was a big step backwards for us, despite all the intel, the solid plan, and how hard we worked. Could you guys give any insight as to what you have tried or anything we could have done differently? I think we just answered his question.
The only other thing I would add there is, as you were reading what he was seeing and experiencing, the first thing that popped into my mind was they had to have been hunting in a unit where there were wolves.
Okay.
And, if you're seeing a bunch of sign and not hearing any bugles from the 9th through the 20th, 11 days of hunting, and you're not hearing any bugles, especially even at night, there's got to be more than just the heat and the moon and the smoke. I think you throw wolves in there too, and that, because we had slow days, but there were days we covered a lot of country, and we'd get into those pockets where it's like there are trails all over in here, and we'd bugle and nothing. We'd go over a ridge and bugle, and there'd be 3 bulls down in that little basin. And so it was a matter of finding those little pockets. But once we got into good sign, we almost always had at least bugles. Once we moved in, we might not have been able to do anything with those bugles, but we definitely heard elk at least. And so I would say he probably was facing all of those challenges, plus probably an active pack of wolves in that area.
Well, maybe that explains it. I was going to say, well, sounds like you were hunting next to me, is what I was going to say. One thing I did find out, you have the dumbest grouse. Well, no, you have the most coy grouse in the world in Idaho. So the first 2 days of the hunt, I said, look, I can't shoot any grouse because it was really dry. So our film permit said no open fires. So if I shoot a grouse in the first half of the hunt, what am I going to do? I can't, they'll spoil, and I can't cook them on an open fire. There were grouse walking around. It looked like chickens in my neighbor's yard. And I didn't shoot a single one of them. The last 2 days I told Kurt, I'm like, I'm on full grouse alert here. Do you think we saw another grouse the last 2 days?
Probably not.
Yeah. Same in Wyoming on the deer hunt. There were grouse everywhere. But I didn't have the legal means of take, so they all got away. I didn't know if you could shoot them with a center fire rifle. So come to find out, you could. But
that's awesome.
But it's curious, when we were deer hunting, there were 3 days. I think it was, what days would it have been? The 19th, the 19th, the 20th, and the 21st. The elk were going absolutely bonkers, like all day long. We're sitting on these knobs glassing for deer, and the elk are down below us in these avalanche chutes. I don't know that I've ever heard elk bugle and carry on for 72 hours nonstop.
Man.
I don't know. And I'm like, where were these guys when I was in Idaho 8-10 days ago?
What were the dates?
September 19th, 20th, and 21st.
Yeah, that's what they should be doing. And it was good here on those days as far as bugling. The bulls were bugling, but I've never seen it here where the elk go quiet at 9:30 in the morning and don't bugle again until an hour before dark. Yeah. Typically on those dates, we're able to keep them bugling all day. And we had multiple times where we'd work into a bedding area and cow call, and a bull would make a little bedded bugle, which, sometimes all we need. And so after a couple of experiences of trying all the normal tactics and having it not work, I said, you know what, we're just going to slip in there and just wait and let them get curious and see if they want to start talking. And we'd wait sometimes an hour after that bull would let out a bedded bugle, and he'd let out another one an hour later, but he was 400 yards up the hill. And it just so much that was unexplainable and unpredicted and frustrating this year. And we did see it 6 years ago. I hunted Montana and had very similar conditions there early. Just tough getting an elk to bugle, tough getting them to commit and come in. And I kind of wrote it off as, well, that's just Montana. But when I got back to Idaho, and I didn't hunt Idaho that year, but everybody said kind of the same thing. I don't know what's going on, but couldn't get anything to talk and couldn't find elk. And I haven't seen it since then, but this year was definitely that year that, for whatever reason, we'll just say it was because it was the year 2020 and everything seems to be messed up. So,
Well, then I talked to some people who've been hunting here in Montana the last week of September, and they said it's been unreal.
Really?
I guess we're focusing on that because I just have been sorting through so many of these questions and comments, and the ones that came earlier in September, the first 3 weeks, all expressed the same thing that you and I experienced. And I wish I had the answer to say, well, you should have done this, you should have done that. But if I had that answer, that's what I would have done. So, but I don't. But the good news is I leave tomorrow for Colorado. I have a first season rifle tag. And I'm all business on this one, Corey. My freezer's full. I've been eating fish now for 6 weeks.
Ooh.
Yeah.
What kind of fish?
There's this company I work with in Billings called the Billings Seafood Guys. They have a program called the Wild Alaska Seafood Box. It's like a subscription service. And so I get fresh Alaska seafood to my house once a month. And shameless plug, if you use promo code Randy for a subscription, you'll get scallops for life. Yeah, for the life of your subscription.
Yeah.
Not for your life, but
yeah.
So I'm.
Did they deliver to Idaho?
Oh yeah, they'll deliver it anywhere overnight. Yeah. So, but that's where I've been getting my fish. So I'm going to Colorado on this first season. So first rifle season this year in Colorado opens October 10th. I still think there's going to be a few bulls that are bugling because archery season closed the last weekend of September. The muzzleloader season, where they probably have heard some bang, pop, boom noises, closed even earlier than that. So they're hopefully a little bit back in their routine of, all right, the disruption's over. Let's get serious about bugling and partying again. And I'm bringing my flute down there, and I'm going to try strike up the band and call one in and shoot them. You think I'm wasting my time on October 10th?
I don't think so. In fact, this year of any year, I'm just hoping that it's late. That's why we weren't hearing a lot of bugles. And if it wasn't late and it was on time, I think it was so severely muted that the second rut, when it comes back around, is going to be better than normal. Because I don't think that there were a lot of cows getting bred just from my time out in the field. I would say that October 10th, I'm planning on October 15th calling in elk. That's when rifle season opens here, general rifle season in Idaho. And there's some places we got into elk that I'm planning on going back and hoping to call them in for the kiddos. And then we're doing a later season rifle hunt the last week of October. And we're going back in and I'm anticipating being able to hear bugles, maybe not calling them in, but I'm anticipating that where we're going, we should be able to still hear some bugles.
I like that. You're giving me encouragement here, Corey.
Yeah.
I fully expect if I go there and I don't call one in, I'm going to blame it on you.
Well,
I'm going to go to the Elk Talk Podcast link and send a message that said, Corey doesn't know what he's talking about.
An anonymous message. Yeah. This sure sounds like Randy.
No, so here's my strategy. And, this is this period where we're transitioning from peak rut to post-rut. And I'm trying to calculate in my head, all right, if the first peak of the rut of September was somewhat muted, are there more cows that are going to come into a second cycle? I don't know that for sure. I'm hoping that.
Yeah,
but then I'm also looking at the fact, and this is just to give people some insight about how I plan and do my hunts. I got a hold of the BLM. I know that there are outfitters who operate in the area that I'm going. And if you look at the Google imagery from October 15th of a certain year, you can see where all their camps are. So note to those of you who do this kind of stuff. So their camps are all at 9,000 to 10,000 feet. So I'm going up to about 11,000, thinking, all right, in Colorado, there's a lot of 14,000 foot peaks in this unit. So for elk to be at 11,000 is not unexpected. Yeah. So my idea is I'm going to go up higher for two reasons. One, I think hunting pressure from the outfitter camp is going to push them up higher after the first day when the shooting starts. And second, it's been a warm year. I don't think there's any snow or any snow to speak of up higher that's going to force them further down the transition range. So that transition range I always identify as where the summer range and it's that part of the migratory landscape between the high summer range and the low winter range. And usually in hunting season, the elk are somewhere in that transition range. I think because of how mild it's been, how dry it's been, the elk are going to be higher up in the upper half of that transition range. And that's where I'm going to focus.
So you're talking 12 to 13,000 feet?
In this area, that's mostly scree and rock. So gotcha. I'm looking like 11 to 12,000, somewhere in there.
Gotcha.
So I'll report back to you whether or not my strategy is worth a damn. But, yeah. I am going to do a lot of calling. I'm bringing my big bully bugle from Rocky Mountain Hunting Calls. I'm bringing all my whole array of calls. I'm trying everything. And then here, because of this, people say, how has COVID affected your plans? Well, before I can go to the next hunt, I have to get a COVID test at least 72 hours prior to leaving, and it better show up negative. So that means I got to cut my Colorado elk hunt from 5 days down to 3 in order to get home in time to get my COVID test. So I'm leaving 2 days early, and I've got a full day and a half. So I'm leaving actually 3 days early, day and a half to get there and get in. And then I'm allocating a day and a half to scouting before season even opens.
Wow.
And, so we'll see if my theory that in rifle seasons, my theory always is I'll give up a day of hunting for a day of scouting. And the idea is go there, locate a bull, pattern him, and shoot him opening morning. We're going to see whether or not that works. I might just end up with an empty sack. I'll come home kicking the dirt, be long in the face and say, Corey, I need a new co-host on the Elk Talk podcast because I'm completely clueless. And if it gives you any idea of how serious I am about this year was going to be my year where I did one season, one rifle, where I was going to hunt the entire season with my 7mm 08. I'm bringing my 300 Win Mag on this hunt.
Oh, you're serious.
I am downright serious about this. I just, my freezer's empty, man. I don't have any elk meat in my freezer, and it's October, whatever it is today. So I throw that out there because I know that a lot of people go to Colorado or even other states like you're saying, Idaho, you guys open 5 days later. Yeah. It is that weird period between the peak rut kind of starting to end and at least the mature bulls starting to drift off into their solo places to recover and get away from hunting pressure until they start getting into their bachelor herds again in early November. And it'll be interesting to see what I find.
I'm just kind of banking on them talking later than normal this year and trying to get it done with the rifle myself.
Yeah. So, tons of other comments. I'm not even sure which ones we should start with. Some of them are ideas. Someone had said that they heard our podcast about how much you like snakes. Have you encountered any snakes yet this year?
No, we in fact the day when we dropped 1,500 feet in elevation, part of the motivation to not drop the next 1,500 was it would put us down in snake country, or at least really close to it. So, I'll use the 3,000 foot vertical pack out, and it only being 40 minutes before dark as my excuse. But in the back of my mind, I was thinking, if I'm on the fence at all, we could just turn around and go back up because there may be snakes down there.
Yeah. Any grizzly bear encounters this year?
No, we just hunted Idaho and then Utah so far, and no grizzlies.
No, none for me either. But now I'm going through some more of these comments, and Thomas says, "Hey, just wanted to say thanks for all the great tips and tactics. Montana, second weekend of season, I arrowed a bull, my first. Woohoo!" So, see?
Excellent. Congrats.
That means like September 13th or 14th, he already filled his tag, and I'm sitting there singing the blues. So maybe we should have Thomas do this.
Exactly.
But, so then we got this other person who you'd probably be best to answer this. And we had a few. This time of year, we get a lot of questions about calling tactics and strategies, about what works, what should I do differently. And so he said, I've listened to all your podcasts when you guys talk about calling and calling setups. And we can't do this. I mean, not today anyhow. He says, can you do a podcast about what calls to use, when to use them, and include audio examples? Maybe someday. I think in the University of Elk Hunting, you do all that, don't you?
I do. Yeah, no, it's there's a very detailed, there's actually 2 complete modules in there on elk calls and calling elk, which that's 2 different topics. The elk calls is how to select the right elk calls, how to use the elk calls, how to maximize your ability with elk calls. And then the calling elk is how to use the elk calls to call in elk. So the strategies, the tactics, what each of the different labeled elk sounds actually sound like with, audio and everything. So yeah, if someone was interested in a full tutorial on elk calls and calling elk, 2 of the 17 modules in the University of Elk Hunting online course go into quite a bit of detail on that.
And they can find that at Elk 101?
Yeah, at elk101.com, and be sure and use the promo code Elk Talk. And we probably need to clarify, all of these promo codes we talk about, they're all the same. It's Elk Talk, and it's all one word, no spaces, and it doesn't usually matter if it's capitalized or anything. But we get a handful of emails each week from people saying, I just tried this over at gerbergear.com or at, wherever it is, and come to find out they're putting a space in between elk and talk or something like that. So it's just Elk Talk, all one word.
Yeah. So I'm going to follow with some of these questions he asked, and these might be easy yes or no's. So he says, is it possible to be too loud with your cow calls and your bull calls?
Yes.
You can be too loud.
I think, so my typical sequence when I'm trying to locate an elk with calls, I start off with a cow call, and I just do a soft cow call. And then I'll escalate the cow call, so I'll cow call through my bugle tube. And then I'll do a soft location bugle, and then I'll do a louder one. And the reason why is if there's an elk 80 yards away, I don't want to just blow him out of the woods right off. The first thing he hears is this really loud, aggressive bugle. I think you can be too loud if you're too close to the elk initially. So I start off quieter, get louder, and then if nothing, I move on. But once you get engaged with that elk and you're moving in, I think too loud on a cow call, if you're too close, can sound unrealistic. I think, the emotion is more important than the volume. Elk have incredibly good hearing. And so I think you don't need to broadcast it through a tube once you get close. You can use the tube to directionally broadcast it to make it sound like it's farther behind you or off to the side. And I do that sometimes, but I don't want to be too loud. When it comes to a challenge bugle, I don't think you can be too loud. Once you've engaged that elk, you're in close and you want to tell him, you're an idiot. I want to fight. I don't think you can be too loud, and I don't think you can be too aggressive.
So you kind of approach it like I do with glassing. I always glass the closest stuff first. Because if they're far, far away, it's not like they're on alert and you're going to spook them if they're 1,000 yards away. But if they're 200 yards away, you want to see those ones right away. So I start glassing close. So your calling sequence is predicated on the idea that there might be some close. And if I don't get a response, then I'll crank up the volume.
Yep.
Okay. So
I don't want to blow them out of the water, with my first attempt to locate them if they are close. And it does happen sometimes. We'll let out a soft cow call and immediately a bull will answer 100 yards away and it's scramble time, getting a good setup. Is the wind good? All those things. And typically by the time we spend that 3 minutes getting everything locked in and good, get set up and we cow call again, he answers from 400 yards away. That seemed to be the story this year anyway.
So you've already answered some of the next questions then. So first he is talking about locating calls. Now he switches his questions to challenge calls. And you've answered this one. Can you be too big and too loud when making a challenge?
No,
I think you just answered
I don't think so. And I think, that goes, sometimes people say, what if it's just a young bull? And I really think that when you're issuing that challenge, you're communicating to an instinct in that elk. And a young bull, a spike, anything, and I've probably told the story before, but we were in Oregon and I got a spike to come in with his eyes rolled back, slobbering out of his nose, bugling, which I don't hear spikes bugle a whole lot. He was growling and everything coming in. And I think it's just, we tripped that trigger. It's a natural response when they get challenged to come in and fight. And obviously the spike wasn't going to come in and engage in a full-on battle with a big mature 6-point, but he went through the motions. He came in with his head back he literally was just out of his mind, wild, coming into a challenge bugle.
Well, then this person switches, or I don't want to say switches, continues, let's say that. He says, with challenge calls, is there such thing as a safe challenge call that won't scare them off? And if so, what does a safe challenge call sound like?
See, we're getting way too complicated for my calling strategy here. There's just one challenge bugle, and you do have to play it by ear. Each situation is going to be a little different, but I would never, for me personally, classify, a safe versus a potentially not safe challenge bugle. If I'm going to challenge him, I'm going to challenge him, and that's kind of the same. If you're at a pre-fight weigh-in with an opponent at a boxing match, you either want to get them riled up or you don't. I don't want to use a safe challenge bugle. There might be a safe challenge bugle. I can't ever think of a time where I'd want to use it. If I'm using a challenge bugle, I want to issue a challenge. I want to make sure they know. And sometimes they do. They're like, okay, I'm out. But at that point, I've tried the cow call. That didn't get them in. I issue that challenge. They don't want to fight. At that point, I think we've tried about everything we can. We had a few instances like that this year where we used cow calls. We escalated it to challenge. We raked. I glunked. I did everything in my power, and I couldn't pull that bull in. And, we spent 2.5 hours one time with my daughter Jessie set up on a big herd bull, and I just couldn't pull him in. I tried everything, and I was incredibly frustrated, but it just didn't work.
Yeah. So this person kind of asks a question that's a little bit related to something I just touched on. Hey, Corey and Randy, thanks for doing the podcast. I was out scouting before season, found my location, come to find out that an outfitter is permitted in this area. And as a condition of their public land permit for outfitting, they're allowed to stay in this area the whole season. We, as non-permitted or non-commercial users, have to move every 14 days. Once the outfitter moved in, it seemed like the elk changed their patterns. Have you experienced this? I guess I can't say that I've experienced it, but it doesn't surprise me that if an outfitter comes in and starts setting up his wall tents or his spike camps, that the behavior you saw in the elk in late August or their locations doesn't surprise me at all that they would change.
Yeah, no, it's just human presence, and if it's prolonged presence in the same location, the effect that presence has on the elk is going to be prolonged as well. If you go in and camp somewhere for 7 days and move out 2 days later, the elk might have settled down and come back into that area. But when you have a presence there, and it's probably have horses, they probably aren't being overly quiet at camp. Maybe they have campfires. Their scent, during the day is going up, at night it's going down. So you're getting, the drainages nearby filled with scent. It's going to have an effect on the elk for sure. Not to mention, you've got them rotating hunters in and out of these areas, and they're probably riding horses through the areas and all of that. So yeah, no doubt it'll have an effect.
Yeah, I think that's the case, whether it's an outfitter, whether it's just some other hunters come in and they set up a camp. I mean, that's one of the things. It's just a reality of public land hunting. I mean, yeah, to me, that's why in my e-scouting plans, I always have multiple fallback options, because I just never know when something's going to happen and someone's going to show up, and it's not going to work out the way that I had hoped. And kind of a side note to what the person asked there is, a lot of folks don't know this, but in most of the public lands I'm aware of, there's a 14-day camping limit. In other words, you can't come and put your camper in 2 months before season to quote unquote reserve your spot. I don't know how well it's enforced, but the regulations say 14 days. And there are some exceptions, like outfitters who they go through this whole process of commercial use permits and everything else. And as a result of paying that fee, it's a percentage of their revenue. I can't remember what it is, but usually they're exempted from that because of the big fee that they pay. So,
another really quickly, it brought up something I experienced this year, and I was able to document it, which I haven't always been able to in the past. But we always get the question about cattle and sheep, and how long after they move sheep out of an allotment, a grazing allotment, will the elk come back in there, or do cattle affect them? And I think that cattle, as long as they aren't way overgrazed, they still leave feed for the elk and the cattle can commingle there happily. Sheep, my experience has been they eat everything down to the dirt, and the elk move out. So we hunted Utah. We gave away the hunt with Mountain Ops earlier this year, and the winner of that, we took them on a hunt in Utah. It was on private land, which it has to be legally to be able to do it. So we still hunt everything else public land, but in order to give away that hunt and the way we did it, it had to be on private land. So we hunted bordering another piece of private land, and the elk were screaming literally just across the fence, 100 yards, 200 yards across the fence. And there wasn't anything on our side of the fence where we were camped. And, we made a quick loop one night. The next morning got up and hunted, and I noticed there were sheep tracks everywhere, and they had just moved the sheep out, I think 4 or 5 days before this. And I took a picture of the fence line, and on the side where there were no sheep, there was tall grass, there were big clumps of green grass. On the side where there had been sheep, it was literally nothing but dirt and maybe a couple clumps of old dry grass. And so that's, that picture there will always stick with me, that if there are sheep in the area, you've got to move on. You've got to whether it's human pressure might affect the elk. If there are sheep, though, and pressure from grazing sheep, I would say don't even waste your time there.
Yep. No, I would agree. In fact, Kurt and I were hunting in Idaho. One side of the fence so a lot of people don't realize you'll see a fence going across public land and they're like, oh, is that a public-private boundary? Usually what it is an allotment fence where it keeps the cattle in certain areas where this year they get to graze this allotment, next year they rotate into the neighboring allotment. And so Kurt and I were in this spot, and the water was on the place where the cattle were actively in the allotment. And it was grazed down pretty hard, but not cattle are kind of lazy. They like to stay and graze near the water. Okay. They don't want to go and make a big traverse every day from water to grass. So they just kind of, it's like when you mow your lawn and you keep doing these patterns. Well, any place that was close to water was mowed down pretty heavily by the cattle. You get up on the ridges that took a little bit of a hike to get there and was far away from the water. The grass hadn't been touched, even though it was within the active allotment. And guess where the elk were? In those spots, the elk we did see. So one of the things people might want to do, and I know all the range officers are going to be like, Newberg, don't tell them to call me. But you can find out if the area you're hunting has public land grazing and what the terms or the periods of grazing are. And all it takes is a phone call. Hopefully you can get a hold of the range officer and say, hey, I'm going to be in this area. Is there a public allotment for grazing? If so, when do they graze it? When do they have to have the cattle off there? And you can do some of your planning based on that. So,
yep.
Little tidbit.
Great information. Yeah.
No charge for that advice.
And you'll find grazing allotments in some of the strangest places where you'd never expect it. Way up high with no roads. We hiked in a couple of years ago, like 3.5 miles, and there was a sheep camp up there.
Whoa. Huh. That kind of crosses that off your place. That would be frustrating to hike way up there a couple miles and find a grazing allotment that was bombed out by sheep.
Yeah, and it was. And, with the way we found it was we walked over a ridge and bugled, and all of a sudden dogs started barking down below us. And I thought, that's not a wolf or a coyote. That sounds like a dog, like a regular dog. And we walked up to the ridge, and sure enough, there's a tent there. And then once we got on the ridge, on the backside, all the sheep were down there, and we could hear them moaning or baying or whatever they bagging down in the draw there. And it's like, man. So we wasted that morning getting up into that area and then getting out of there.
Well, you can kind of head that off a little bit with a phone call, but don't wait until the day before you're getting ready to leave. Make that phone call in June once you're putting your plan together, because that'll give that person time to get back to you. So this person has a question that's somewhat similar to a planning thing or at least a consideration I've had to make for my Colorado hunt. And we've talked about this before, but I think refreshing it or bringing it back up again since we're so close to these seasons might be worthwhile. Person says, when camping at elevation above where elk are feeding at night, how do you go about your morning hunt with the thermals going down? So my answer to that is I don't necessarily camp above them. I'm like in Colorado, I purposefully have camped about a mile from where I think the elk are going to be. And I'm going to be camping at the same exact, not same exact, but general approximate elevation of where I think the elk will be. That way, no matter whether I have an uphill or downhill, I'm kind of at their level. I can hunt. It gives me the options, I guess. If they're above me, okay, I can go at them and have a crosswind coming down in the morning. Or if it's in the afternoon, I'll have a crosswind going up. But I know I encountered some camps this year in Wyoming that were right in the middle of where I think the elk would be. It's like, darn. Maybe that's why there aren't any elk here right now.
No. And there's always that allure of, I want to lay in my tent at night and listen to the elk bugle.
Yeah.
But if you're doing that, most likely the elk aren't going to be bugling there for long. And you think about, when are you in camp? Usually after dark until just before daylight. During that time, thermals are always going to be going down. And if you're camping up on a ridge above a drainage that you want to hunt, that drainage is getting your scent. So I always try to, if there's a drainage that's full of elk, I'll just go over the backside of the ridge, maybe 100 yards. So the thermals are going down away from the drainage, completely opposite from the direction of the drainage I want to hunt. And I'm only 100 yards away from that ridge line, but I know that my scent's not going down there. And then the next morning when you approach it, you've got to keep that in mind, that you're going to be on the ridge, thermals are going down. You want to be on a finger ridge that's at least separated by a couple of draws from the elk and the ridge that they're on. Because if you're popping over the ridge right on top of the elk, they're going to smell you. And so like you said, you want to be able to have that flexibility of dropping down, getting to their level, and then coming across to them. Yeah.
Well, for me, all other things being equal, if I had to choose between camping above them or camping below them, I'm camping below them, just because of what you mentioned. At night, I want my scent to be going further down the drainage. So if I'm below the elk and they're up, I don't got to worry about stinking it up. Plus, when I get up in the dark and I start working my way up to where I'm going to hunt, I have a downhill thermal in my face. And that's, I don't know, maybe it's not the best strategy, but that is how I do it. If I am given a choice, I'm camping below them rather than above them.
Yep, absolutely. And the other thing, keep in mind, we get asked a lot, campfire or no campfire? How quiet do you have to be? Well, it really depends on how close to the elk you are. If you're in the same drainage as them, you're down below them, so they aren't going to smell you, but they can hear you. So you don't want to be down there talking. You don't want to be, down there banging titanium pots and pans around it. You want to be quiet. You don't want to have a presence there. And, for campfires, I'm the same. If I'm bivvied in somewhere, I typically am not going to have a campfire. Now, there are exceptions. And this year, I'm notorious for not having campfires at any camp. And I'm definitely relaxing on that stance. I built 4 fires in a 24-hour period this year during archery season. And
Corey,
it was during
the fire.
4 of them. 4 of them. Yeah.
Man, what's the world coming to?
Well, you got to do what you got to do. But, at camp, the one night we got back and it was cold. It was chilly at camp. We were right down. We camped near a creek, which I don't like camping by a creek just because they do get cold. But we camped there and it was chilly, and so I built a fire. The next morning, built the fire while I was waiting because, we were waiting on people to get ready and I had some time, so I just built a fire. And then I was trying to think. So that afternoon was when it snowed on us, and I was waiting on Dale and Donnie on the motorcycles, build another fire. And then that night going out, I got about halfway down the mountain and thought, what, if they have troubles or something, I don't want to get all the way to the truck and wait for 2 hours and then come all the way back in. So I stopped and couldn't hear them. So I built another little fire. And of course, all of these times was when it was snowing or raining and the ground was good and wet. The rest of archery season, I don't think we could have even built a fire if we wanted to, just for the risk of it going crazy.
Yeah, that's when we were in Wyoming elk, the last 2 days when we did the elk hunt, we called in a fire. We saw a fire about 4 or 5 miles away.
Really?
And it looked like where possibly a campfire had, it got really windy that afternoon, and all of a sudden here's this big plume of smoke coming through the trees. I mean, like big. So we called it in, and that afternoon and the next morning, there were a bunch of helicopters circling over that area. I don't know what had happened to it that night, if they'd sent in a crew that started putting it out, but point of that being is, if we are doing fires, we got to make sure they're out. In other words, put your hand down there and it's cool to the touch. So,
yeah. Yeah, a couple other reasons I wanted fires was I got some new fire starter. Have you seen Pyro Putty?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, got some.
Yeah, I bought some this summer and thought, I'll see how it works. Love it. Works awesome. And then the other reason is we've been binge watching seasons of the show Alone. And it's where they take people out and drop them off by themselves. They have to self-film everything, and they have to basically survive off of the land. So food, everything, they have to be able to sustain themselves out there. And so they're, obviously they've been on Vancouver Island and stuff where everything's wet and it's hard to get a fire started. And so I was just wanting to make sure I was brushed up on my fire starting skills in case they ever call and want me to go on the show.
Oh, really?
Well, if they ever did, I just want to make sure I knew how to get a fire going.
I heard the prize is like $500,000 if you're the last person to tap out. Is that true?
It's true, yeah.
They ought to call me.
Yeah, they should.
I won't tap out. I'll just sleep for 30 days.
You'd probably be disappointed when they said you couldn't bring your 6 cases of Mountain Ops protein performance bars with you, too.
Probably would be. Those are good, Corey. You know me, I'm pretty particular. I'm not, because of my liver condition, I don't do supplements because the Mayo Clinic says, oh, Randy, you wouldn't absorb any of that. But whatever they got in these, what do you call them? Performance bars?
Yeah, just their protein bars, performance bars.
I tell you what, I now have to put them under lock and key because I got these camera guys. I let them eat one. They're like, hey, man, where'd you get those?
Yeah.
I'm like, in my pack. Hands off. So I went online and I just ordered 4 more boxes of them because, well, the crew, you're sitting there eating on one of them and you're like, oh man, this is good. So much for these other crappy things that I've been chewing on and breaking teeth for the last 10 years. The crew's looking at me like, you really going to eat that in front of me? And you've seen my pack before where it had been filled with Snicker bars. Mm-hmm. If you have stock in Snickers, sell it because Randy's moving on from Snicker bars. So
what flavor is your favorite?
Oh, what's the blue and white one? It's like caramel.
The Conquer Caramel. Yep.
Is that what it is?
That's my favorite. They were sold out. They sold out of those like in August. All through September, they were sold out. And Casey sent me a text over the weekend and said, hey, we have more caramel in stock. I jumped online and ordered 4 boxes of just the caramel ones because those are my favorite. And they've been withheld from me for like 2 months now. So got that. They have the triple chocolate bliss mudslide or something. Yeah. And then the peanut butter.
Yeah. They're all good, but I would say in my order of 4, I ordered 1 of each and I doubled down on the blue and white caramel, whatever that is. So, you want to know another?
If people are listening, we do have a promo code with Mountain Ops also, and they can use it. And I don't know it kind of changes what the incentive is there. I know it's always free shipping. But then this is October. They do a promo called Opstober, like Mountain Opstober, and they give away a pile of stuff. They're giving away like a razor and all sorts of hunting gear, and I forget, like it's 1 in 3 people win something, and they have all sorts of incentives. So if you're wanting to try out the bars, now's the time to place the order.
Yeah, I won something. So full disclosure, folks, I went online. I paid full retail here. And it said, oh, you're a winner. This is going to be in your cart. I don't know what it was. It was free. I thought it was like some sort of gadget. So you're saying it might actually be something.
Yeah. No, they give away all sorts of, and it might be a free hat or a free sampler pack or something. But yeah, they give away a pile of stuff in October. You at least used the promo code, didn't you?
No, I didn't.
We stress promo code so much, and you jump on Mountain Ops, and you didn't even use our own promo code?
Well, I was thinking it would seem chintzy to go in there and ask for a discount on my own promo code. So I'm like, you know what? I'll pay full boat. But I guess in retrospect, I should have used it because then they can track that sale came from us. But
I was going to say it might have been the only sale we got. You might have been the only listener that heard the promo code.
Oh, well, I thought about it, but I thought they'd look at the order and say, "Look at Newberg, what a tightwad! He wants a discount based on his own promo code." Gee, so I didn't use it, but yeah, they're really good. I usually am not big on that, promoting that kind of stuff. But in this case, I can assure you that if you try them, you're going to throw away your Snicker bar, your Baby Ruth, or your Milky Way, or whatever other sort of bad influence you carry around in your pack. I was impressed.
Yep. No, and I still carry a little fun-sized Snickers bar. That's my celebration Snickers for... It used to be anytime we're successful. Now I celebrate, like, if we make it to the top of the mountain or if we make it back to camp safely. I eat one a day, one of those little fun-sized ones. But I did talk to Casey and said, if you come out with fun-sized little performance bars, I wouldn't have any reason to carry a Snickers in my pack at all. So
yeah, trick or treat.
See if they listen to me.
All right. So another thing in Wyoming, we're up at 10,000 feet. I have one of these jet boil operations. Mm-hmm. The jet boil, the one where the striker goes out the third time you hit the striker. Yeah, so you got to carry 2 Bic lighters and a Zippo with you just to get it to light.
Yeah.
Well, we're up at the mountain. It's blowing like crazy. My the flame keeps going out. And our buddy Bo Beatty, he's got one of these MSR. It's called the wind burner. Mm-hmm. He lights it up, and the wind didn't even phase that thing. So
really,
I was down at. I bought myself an MSR wind burner the other day. It's like, you know what? Cold mountain house, just don't cut it.
No.
So
that's cool.
Yeah, I'm coming up with all kinds of upgrades this year of just little things that I don't know.
Just in full disclosure, a lot of this stuff we're talking about, Pyro Putty and the MSR wind burner, we're not affiliated in any way. This is not a I don't promotional plug or anything. This is the gear that we go down and buy at full price and use. Yeah. The only thing I'd say is go buy it at the Go Hunt gear shop if they have it, and use promo code Elk Talk. And hopefully they'll give you a discount if you do that. They've been pretty good about honoring the promoted discounts. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, no, I was surprised. I did not realize that there were stoves out there that would burn in that kind of wind. Yeah. Now, the thing I got to do is go find some of that high altitude fuel. I've spent the last 3 days running around Bozeman looking for high altitude fuel mix, because the regular fuel mix was struggling at 10,000 feet in Wyoming. I can't imagine what it's going to do at 11.5 in Colorado.
Yeah.
I'll be there holding my Zippo underneath my new MSR burner because my fuel won't come out.
I was going to say, you'll be holding your Zippo underneath your titanium pot to try to get your water to boil.
Yeah, probably. Well, then one night it got really cold. And so I actually slept with my fuel canister in my sleeping bag that night, and because it wouldn't come out. Next morning, at least I had enough took about 30 minutes for it to boil enough for some granola and blueberries. But so, I don't know. People are probably like, Newberg, you knucklehead. We already knew that. You're the stupid idiot who didn't know that. So, probably true. So.
But now you know, and anybody that didn't know learned from your learning.
Yep. I went with a prototype sleeping bag on one trip. That was not, the results of that weren't that favorable. Yeah. I'm done with prototypes, I guess is my point.
Can you talk about that one?
No.
Oh.
some companies send us this stuff, right? And they're like, will you try this? Will you try this? Well, I'm getting to the point in my life where I need sleep at night. All right.
Yeah.
We hike in 10 miles. I need at least 1 hour of sleep for every hour of hiking. And I was sitting in there. I was shivering like a dog pooping peach pits, man. I was not doing well. And so I got hardly any sleep. And I'm thinking to myself, Randy, you've been doing this for how long now? How many years have you been camping in the backcountry? And what do? You decide to start experimenting with new gear in the core of your hunting season. You go do that in July to see what works. So,
no, and I'm a very finicky sleeper because I get cold so easy, and I've had good high-end sleeping bags, 0 minus 30-degree sleeping bags, and I picked up one of the Stone Glacier. I remember what the brand or the model of it is, but it's their 0-degree bag. Hands down the warmest sleeping bag. It's perfect for me. I don't get too hot, but I've never got cold in it. And I've used it I used it in Montana last year when we hunted with you over there, and it was down in the single digits and teens. And and it only weighs, it's like a sub 2-pound sleeping bag. It's super light, super compact, and super warm. So that's been my go-to sleeping bag.
Well, that's a really good deal then. If it'll keep you warm.
Yeah.
I don't get cold that easy. I mean, I've got it dialed in where I can almost sleep in a snowbank with nothing but a tinfoil wrap. But I was cold. And so I think the time has come for me to call that company and say, hey guys, it's great, but we got some work to do here. So what do you use for a sleeping pad?
I've got a Thermarest. It's their Neo Air X. I got something another.
Yeah, I got the same thing. It squeaks every time you roll.
Yeah. I've got the insulated one, and it's actually louder. I have the insulated and the non-insulated, and the insulated one's louder than the non-insulated. So I haven't slept with it. My wife I got her a sleeping bag for backpacking, and it has a sleeve in it that you actually slide the sleeping pad into. So as you're rolling around at night, you don't roll off of it or anything. It stays right in place there. Super slick.
Now you're talking.
Yeah.
I never thought about that. Another company, to remain nameless, sent me a sleeping pad that, how many nights you suppose it stayed inflated before the seal broke on it?
I'm guessing if the seal broke, it probably broke the first night.
Second night.
Wow.
Good thing this Idaho dirt is so soft.
Man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't use hunting season to try out new gear. Like you said, I'll do it during the summer and when I'm going one night. That way I'm not prolonging my misery if it doesn't work out.
Yeah, I'm done with that. I'm back to the old reliable stuff from here on out the rest of the season. I didn't realize how much sleep I needed anymore. For me, as I've gotten older, it's all about pace. Like, I'm trying to follow these 30-year-old guys up the hill, and they have this idea that, all right, let's just run as fast as we can until we're out of oxygen and out of blood supply, and then let's stop and rest. I can't do that. I just plod along. I'm like when you go see your grandparents at the nursing home or the assisted living, and there's the one guy kind of shuffling his feet down the hallway. That's kind of me. I'm going to get there. Just don't be in a hurry. I'm going to get there. As quick as I get beyond what my comfortable pace is, it just eats me up. And if I don't get enough sleep at night, I'm just not worth a damn the next day.
Man.
So, yeah. First world problem, I know.
Yeah, no kidding.
So, but point of that is, people are always like, Newberry, I can't believe you carry that 2-man tent all the way up this mountain. Well, guess who sleeps the best? Not the dude in the 1-man tent. Me.
Yep.
So,
I did just get a new tent last year too, and it's absolutely that exact. It's a 2-man. I actually had a 3-person. I didn't realize it was a 3-person. All these years I've been telling people it's a 2-person tent, super spacious. And I couldn't figure out, I weighed it, and I'm looking at the specs online. I'm going, they lie about their weights. And I actually gave it to my son Isaac to use when I got my new one, and he's actually reading the labels on it. He's like, Dad, this is a 3-person tent. And so I looked up. Sure enough, the specs do match the 3-person weight, but I went to a 2-person, so I shaved off like 12 ounces, and it's still got plenty of room. And it's got 2 vestibules, so I've got room for boots on one side, and I can put my pack on the other, and still use all the room inside to sleep.
Yeah. Well, there's something to be said for comfort. You just when you're hunting hard and you're in the backcountry, do a little more to be as comfortable as you can, or at least when you start getting a little bit longer in the tooth and grayer in the hair. Think about that. Just trust me on that one, folks. You're going to be thankful for the small amount of comfort, or the large amount of comfort for the small amount of extra weight and space.
Yep.
And that's where llamas come in. You know what? Those llamas, they don't care if I have my 1-man tent or my 2-man tent, because we're talking about 12, 14 ounce difference. That just doesn't make a difference on a llama. So,
and I'm both excited and nervous at the same time, because we're going to take llamas in on our rifle hunt this year.
You are? You guys talked Bo into it?
Well, Bo talked me into it.
Really?
I was trying to talk you into going because you have experience with llamas, and that would ease some of my nervousness. But I am excited to take them in and let them pack the elk out for us. Even if we have to pack all of our gear, it'll still save us trips. And
how many are you bringing?
I think 4.
Ooh, and you're going to shoot 2 elk?
Yeah. But it's not a bad trail in and out, and so I think we'll be able to shuttle. If we get one, somebody will just shuttle it up. Use all 4 llamas and shuttle it up, and then come back in.
Gotcha.
If we shoot 2 at the same time, we'll do the same thing. We're planning on taking 2 trips out.
Yeah. Well, if you want to rent llamas, you better get with the program, folks. Wilderness Ridge Trail Llamas, because I was there 5 days ago dropping my llamas off after the Wyoming trip, and things are pretty busy there. With COVID, a lot of people, I was asking Bo about this. He said, well, a lot of people just didn't know if they're going to be able to hunt, so they didn't make llama reservations. And now they're all deciding, I'm going, heck with it. And they're calling at the last minute, hey, I want llamas. And he's like, here's what I got.
Yeah.
But one other thing, I just got an email from the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, and they awarded $2.1 million to habitat conservation just in Arizona.
Wow.
So
you don't hear a lot about Arizona with their efforts. So that's, I mean, I know they're there, but you just don't hear about it. And so that's cool. That's a big allotment.
Yeah. So here's what it says in the email. It says RMEF granted directly $234,000 and leveraged an additional $1.8 million of conservation funding from agencies, i.e. Forest Service and BLM, probably. These projects will benefit 19,800 acres of habitat. And then it goes on to list the stats in Arizona. 6,600 RMEF members in Arizona. Their most profitable chapter in the entire RMEF network is Tucson.
I know. Every year they're the ones that pull the plug on all those poppers at the convention. It gets really loud, and they're a rambunctious group of people.
Yeah. Since inception in Arizona, RMEF has done 504 conservation projects with a combined value of $35.1 million, enhanced 430,000 acres of habitat, and improved access to 21,500 acres.
Wow.
Yeah. And I know there's another email out there. I couldn't find it, but they just did a big project in Arizona in elk hunting unit 4A with a landowner that it really made a big difference in the access project there. It's a 65,000 acre ranch that also has access to way more than that of public land. And so they worked with that landowner to keep it open to public hunting and so Arizona Game and Fish has this thing I think it's called the Adopt a Ranch program. And so you go out there and all the volunteers come and help with, work and fences and cleaning up. And because unfortunately there's always still some people who are going to litter or do stupid things. And so this rancher, I've been there twice. We've filmed 2 antelope hunts on this property that's enrolled in that program, and it's open to public access. You got a sign-in box and everything, but the amount of public land beyond that it provides access to, and amount of state land within the ranch that it provides access to is amazing. And so RMEF, a whole bunch of other groups, not just RMEF, but a lot of other groups, all these partners get together, and they went out there and worked on this ranch. It's really a cool program. Just another thing that RMEF is a part of that makes a difference for access, for conservation, with all that stuff. So the unfortunate part is I don't have an Arizona elk tag this year. You?
I don't. I'm getting close. I can taste it. Yeah. I haven't nailed down what unit I want to apply for yet. So that's kind of holding me back a little. There's definitely a handful I could draw, and there's a handful that are within a couple of years of being able to draw. So within the next couple of years, I think I'll be hunting Arizona. I'll definitely be hunting Colorado. I've got 17 points there or something for deer and elk, and so I'm going to be spending those in the near future. And Wyoming, hopefully we're able to go back to Wyoming next year, and I might get the coordinates from you for that place that's 11 miles back in. And that sounds like a good place to be.
I don't know that I need an elk that bad. 11 miles back in.
But I'm envisioning llamas carrying it out, so I can walk 11 miles if I don't have to carry an elk.
No, but the bad part was the last 3 miles, you can't get llamas to them. And it's some of the most miserable, godforsaken terrain in all of North America. That's why the elk were in there.
I was going to say, and the elk weren't down at that 3 mile mark where you had to go up into the nasty stuff?
No, they didn't get the memo. But so there's definitely reasons for elk being where they are, and in that case, they were in the right place for the right reason. And I don't know. Someday when I get energetic again and lick my wounds and heal up, I'll be like, oh yeah, I'm going back in there. But right now, I think common sense. There's one good thing about being 6 weeks into the season. Common sense has returned to my process again.
We're definitely slow learners, but we do learn every year.
Yeah.
We learn the same lessons every year.
Yeah, I'm the slowest of all learners. My wife is sitting over there at the coffee table looking at me, nodding her head like, yep, why won't you admit that to me? She just heard me make a confession. Now I've busted myself. But so, what else we got, Corey?
I don't know. I'm excited for the next few weeks. We've got the Outfitters for Hope Hunt. We've got hunt. All 3 of my kiddos still have their elk tag, and then Donnie and I are going the last week of October. So, getting in a little more rifle hunting this year than normal.
Wow. I'm worried about you now.
Yeah, well,
I'm rifle from here on out, man. I gotta fill a tag and get some meat in the freezer. So I'm here to admit, you know what? When it comes to having complete childish adolescent style fun, that's when I get my bow out. But when it's the reckoning, it's like freezer filling, I'm breaking out the rifle.
And I'm just looking forward to a different, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's nothing like bugling and calling elk, but if we can incorporate a little bit of bugling and calling and a little different style, I mean, it's going to be where we're going steep and pretty rugged, and there'll be some sitting up there, and if it's cold enough, maybe building a little fire and glassing, and we're going back in, so we got to bring camp with us, and kind of a remote little camp. So I can't believe it. I've convinced Corey Jacobson that there is some redeeming value in hunting sanctuaries in the post-rut period. Yeah, I'm convinced.
Never thought I'd get you there.
Yeah, I think I killed 9 grouse in September this year too. So.
I saw that. Holy smokes! You better watch it. You'll be like me someday. No, I'm going to Colorado, and then I'm going to New Mexico the following week. We have a sweepstakes winner. Can I plug the sweepstakes we got coming up here pretty soon?
Yeah.
So RMEF every year does a membership drive with me that is sweepstakes. You get to win a hunt. We go on an elk hunt. So be on the lookout in early November. They'll be promoting that. And some lucky winner gets his huge prize package and gets to go on an elk hunt with us. So
very cool.
I really hope that we have a great hunt for that person, because when you get a new person and you want to show them a great time, you hope that's the hunt of the year where everything falls in place. So,
yeah. And we just actually got back last week from our winter hunt. And not only do you want a good hunt for the winner, you want a good winner for the hunt.
Yeah.
And man, we've been very fortunate, but this year was just the hunt winner. His name's Lewis. He started working out literally the day that he found out he won. And he was in better shape than any of us. He said, I don't ever want to come on an experience like this and not be successful because of my physical conditioning. He chipped in. He brought dinner one night. He brought breakfast one of the mornings. Literally within 5 minutes of being there, it was just like he was part of our hunting group, and we had a ton of fun. We I don't want to spoil everything, but we filled 2 tags there. And if you remember last year in Destination Elk, in our video series on YouTube, we had the hissing bull, that bull that came into 6 yards or whatever and laid his head back and hissed at me. That was kind of our capstone moment of the season. We had one of those moments, not a hissing bull, but we had a capstone moment on this hunt that you're going to have to see to believe.
All right. Spoiler alert. Be there.
Yep.
Watch it on your YouTube channel, right?
Yep. And we're still a ways from it coming out, but we'll definitely have more details in the near future. So
cool.
Yeah.
Well, we'll cover those, I guess, and maybe in the next episode.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to get the report. So I'm going to 2 different states than you are. You're going Idaho on
both of these that are coming up. Yeah, we'll be in Idaho the rest of October.
All right. I'll be in Colorado and New Mexico. I hope that it's nice weather. I know people say, "Oh, I wish we'd get some snow." I've slept in enough snow. I don't want any snow. I hope it's highs in the upper 60s, lows in the 30s every night. That'd be just fine for me.
You sound like you're getting soft.
I am. I fully am, Corey. There is no doubt about it. I'm softer than one of those little Hostess snowball things, the white coconut covered snowballs that are chocolate on the inside. That's me. Yeah, I'm like the Pillsbury Doughboy, man. I am that soft. But
okay.
So, with that, should we let him go?
Yeah, I think.
All right.
It's good
I
too.
really appreciate it. I can't believe people listen to us.
I don't know that they do listen. They might just have us playing in the background. It's kind of that audio thing that they play it on their mobile device in their tent as they're trying to fall asleep, just to drown out all the elk bugling outside.
Well, maybe I should just bring a downloaded elk bugling melody on my phone, and then I could lay in my tent and listen to that, and then I could say, man, I heard elk bugling from my tent. But no, well, I'll send you pictures if I got anything big from Colorado.
Likewise.
Even if I got anything small.
I was going to say, pictures of pictures.
It is any legal bull, which means it's got to have did you know that in Colorado that you have to attach your carcass tag? You can't attach it to the antlers. You got to attach it to the meat.
Yeah, it's the same in Idaho and same in Utah.
Really?
Yep.
So I'm just reading all the fine print here. I'm like, whoa. In some states I attach it to the antler, but in Colorado, it specifically says, shall be attached to the carcass. So when I cut up the carcass, I'm not exactly sure what that means, but I better get it done right.
Yep.
And then also,
Idaho specifically says it shall be attached to the largest portion of meat. So I always put it on the hind quarter.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
I just... every year I get the regs and I read through them, and sometimes it pops out to me like, have I been doing that right? Yeah. I mean, when you're doing it on video content, you want to do it right.
Yeah.
You want to do it right no matter what. But I think sometimes we hunt our own home state that might not have a specific regulation about, say, where you got to attach a tag. And then you go hunt another state where it's like, hey, you got to be here doing it this way according to our rules. It's like, oh, all right, I'm paying attention now. So, and then also I can shoot any legal bull, which I'm like, oh, any legal bull, to me that's like any bull. Well, I go read the regulations, it's like, no, it must have either 4 tines on one antler or at least a 5-inch brow tine in the lower. And it shows what a brow tine is. It's got to be at least 5 inches. Every state's got a different definition of what a legal bull is also.
Yep.
Point of that being, if you travel to hunt a lot, check out all those little things.
Again, it's like we've talked about with trying to navigate the applications for each state. Once you make it through that and get a tag, then you've got to navigate the regulations because they are different from state to state.
Yeah. And speaking of which, if you want tags, I would go to the gohunt.com website and I'd sign up for the Insider and use promo code Elk Talk, because there it's still got all these amazing tools. It's got the filtering 2.0. It's got all the draw odds. It's got all the analysis. It's got the strategy articles. And now you get 3D maps on your desktop. Soon, you notice how they, a lot of people are like, hey, they postponed the mobile app of 3D maps until after hunting season. I've talked to them. They're like, yeah, we have high standards. And if we're not meeting every one of those standards, we're going to defer it. So after hunting season, you'll be able to get your mobile 3D maps once they release that. So,
which is just so incredibly helpful in the field. I can't tell you how reliant I am now on my mobile device and the app out in the field. It's man. And then to put it into 3D, it takes it to a whole nother level.
Yeah. And like I said on prior podcasts, I'm here admitting sheepishly that I underestimated how much benefit I'd get out of 3D.
Yep.
So I'm still one of those guys who, for some reason, I'm holding on to all my old BLM paper maps, thinking that, well, I spent a small fortune. I've got 4 file cabinets full of these. I'm not throwing them out. Yep. I am not getting rid of these. And my wife will say, do you need these 4 file cabinets full of maps? I'm like, well, what do you think I'm going to use for wallpaper someday? These maps.
Ooh.
I got some BS story about why I got to keep them, but yeah, I'm tethered to my online maps and my mobile kind of device for all this kind of stuff anymore. So,
Yep.
All right, enough of that. Let's go.
Yeah, let's go and hunt.
Go kill an elk, Corey.
I have to wait a while until I do, but we're gonna pack elk, and we're gonna call elk, and we're gonna be involved in some elk hunting.
Well, I'm going to be involved in some hunting. I hope I'm involved in some freezer filling also.
That's right.
I'm getting kind of growly about all this, so we'll make it happen.
We don't want Randy to have to survive through the winter on scallops and seafood. So
yeah, I mean, I love my buddy John over at the Wild Alaska Seafood Box, but he's probably tired of me calling him and say, "Hey, John, I haven't killed an elk yet. You want to send some more fish?" All right, Corey. Thanks for your time, folks. Thanks for listening. Hope everybody's going to have a great season of what's ahead, and we'll report to them when we get out of the woods at the next pass.
Yep, and likewise, if you're having success, we'd love to see that. So just tag us on Instagram. If you're on Instagram, just tag Elk Talk Podcast, and we'd love to see that and share it if we're able to.
Yeah. Well, don't stand by waiting for my pictures based on the results so far.
Awesome. Well, we will catch you on the next one.
Thanks, Corey.
Yep. Thanks, Randy.